Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jair Ribeiro, AI strategist for EMEA in Kimberly-Clark. We are very excited here to be in this panel because I think these topics we're going to draw out some very interesting conversation here. You know, despite the sometimes exaggerated hype around AI, there is no doubt that AI is changing how business operates today. And we are witnesses in these days a rapid proliferation of AI across many industries, across all industries that are fueled by the technologies breakthrough that we saw in the last years. And it means, but some of the most common issues that these companies that are growing on their AI journey and have facing in their journey are those involved, of course, people, data, and in many cases, business alignment. So while every company, it's unique, particularly the ones that we have here in the panel here today, and we'll go through the AI adoption process in a unique way too. But there are some few roadblocks to be aware that are common for companies. So we want to try to explore many of them here. To start the panel, I'd like to start maybe with Igor. That's one a very direct question, Igor. Although AI is evolving, as we mentioned, and becoming really more popular, many businesses are really still struggling to succeed in these new technologies. What's your view around this?
Yeah, thank you very much for this exciting point. Great to be here. From my point of view, exists a kind of gap, and this is actually normal between AI technology and business understanding and business acceptance of this technology. And now it comes in my mind, somebody from Famous said that AI technology is the answer, but what was the question? And exactly in our communication with business, we need to find out the question in the room which was not asked before. Sounds maybe a little bit ridiculous, but everybody understands probably, I hope, my point. And in this conversation, we're trying to find this question and to bring to this question solution and explain the solution in order to get acceptance for that.
Yeah, that's make a lot of sense. And then it means that we still have a long journey ahead to put all these blocks together. Well, thanks, Igor. And the next question I would like to put here, I will directly point to Dr. Manuel, but also I would like everyone that would like to bring his view, please. It's talk about data, because data, it's really consistent one of the most difficult challenge that we can find in our journey. But how can business leaders today can make sure that their teams have the necessary data to fuel their models, to fuel their AI applications? Manuel, would you like to give us some view about this?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, I mean, I think the approach that I've seen work the best is to start with thinking about concrete business use cases. And then, so going first into the use cases, thinking about what the value of these use cases could be, and then extrapolating this back into what data we would actually need to do these use cases. Some of that data may be already there. It may already, part of this journey, show you, well, we actually do have some data we didn't even know about yet. And all the way to, okay, we have some really key data that would be relevant to start either collecting or looking into third-party data services, APIs that we wanna complement our own internal data in order to do these use cases. So yeah, I think the overall message is really starting from where you really want to go with thinking about really business use cases, and then drawing it down to your own internal data pods and thinking about what would be necessary. And as part of that, you will see that okay, one thing is then finding the data, but how do you bring this into an end-to-end life cycle, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to industrialize these use cases. So what does this mean for that kind of data that you need to do these use cases and so on? And that will bring you in a lot of discussions between IT and business that will overall bring the organization forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. That data in many aspects is still really a challenge, and it's funny because this is the core of any AI solution, and it should be something that will be connected to every others. Any other view about the team, about the panel, about what's these questions about the data?
Yeah, if I might, actually, I was going to add. I like what Dr. Proissl was saying there, but just one additional thing to add to it is I think it's really important to think about the things we're building as data products in many ways. And I think just adding on to what you're saying about, starting from the use case and working backwards. I mean, if you think about it from a product perspective, almost like how a product manager would approach building a product and taking it out to market, I think it's, it's really, it brings in the human aspect to it as well, not only the use case, but also there's some people on the far end that are going to be consuming that. How do they want to see it? How does it affect their day-to-day work or their lives, the things they're doing with it, and then working backwards. So yeah, I think really data product focus, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Well, I would like to switch a little bit about, we will start to talk about data, but so I would like to ask all about people. The job market, it's really dealing with a big challenge. A lot of demands for AI specialists. And in many cases, it's really greater than availability of professionals. In Europe areas, it's really critical. In the dark region, we still have struggling on the job market. But on the other hand, many professions are even smarter machines replace people due to AI automation. So it's a destructive construction here in the market. But I would like to ask directly to Roger in this case, how you feel the companies can cope today with this challenge to find talent in the market today, and how we are doing this?
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, being part of this panel. This is a very good question, because what we see is there is no real answer to that. Yeah, so companies have to start to look to employer branding and all this kind of stuff. You have to do. You have to be attractive in the outside world. But when it really comes to make people also stay, yeah, we cannot afford to lose people. That's also a very, very important part. And so you see that there's very often a huge frustration about the daily work that you have to do. So it's also, I believe, very important to have the structure in place that people can be innovative, that they can think about what they like to achieve in business, so that they like to stay and have also a perspective for the future. So in addition to that, what we as a vendor are doing, and I would encourage everybody of you to talk to your vendors, is that we start working with universities, building programs there, educate people on our products, and also on what does it mean to be a data scientist or data analyst, yeah, so that we can also have here a vital environment of young candidates that can come into organizations. And also that we believe, as you described before, AI is sometimes counterproductive, because they will eliminate jobs, which I do not believe in the future. There is much more to do, what we see. So also encourage everybody to have a center of enablement. Yeah, so upskilling people in the organization, because if you're able to find free time for employees. Why shouldn't they evolve into a data analyst or data scientist? Yeah, so this center of enablement that has always huge successes, because it will help also to have innovations at one place. You will get people from the business into and IT into one room, educate them on what's possible right now and how easy it could be to get into this new role if they're looking forward to be a data analyst. And this is so important.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. Any other view around the panel about how we are coping with the market?
Maybe one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, please go on.
Okay, so maybe a quick comment on recruiting, because it has been a topic also yesterday in many presentations. I think open source is actually a good idea in this case, because we believe in open source, and I think in universities that's what they teach. So everybody coming from the universities, you will get a lot of talent that is in this open source world. So if you have a possibility for them to use the tools they are used to from university, and also as you said, like upskilling is also a topic, right? So you will get a lot more talent if you offer them a way to learn something that is meaningful in a wider space. So I truly believe in open source and open standard in this area as well.
That's cool. Thanks, Guido.
Maybe I would like to add a couple of words from my side, because what I'm seeing last years, and actually it's logic that you can get people from you're getting people from the university from 100% innovation surround to life, to industry. It's not bad, it's not good, it's a real life. And I think that important point to keep these people, it's a possibility to give the people free place to grow, and we have room to grow, room to go, and to show perspective, to show roadmap, and allow people to be innovative. And this is one of my key learning, to one of the possibility to keep people, to grow people.
That's great point, Dr. Igor. Coming back to the technology point of view, I would like to ask Achim, in particular, when it comes to about integration of all these blocks that we have around artificial intelligence. You know, AI is a kind of technology that should be implemented as a standalone, but rather it's a comprehensive solution with several technologies, collaboration between different disciplinaries, departments, and everything that's to really maximize the productivity and results for business. So my question is, how can we leaders ensure that we are integrating AI maybe across the overall strategy of the company? So what do you feel about this?
Yeah, thanks for having me first. So I think this is really one of the harder problems, because it also, it doesn't only affect implementation of technology, which is, I would say, even the easier part nowadays, because we have so many great frameworks out there. I think the hardest part, if I look also how it affects our processes, is really changing these processes that have been established throughout decades in some companies. If you look at production processes, for example, you really have to, I think for the domain experts, it could feel for them that they are getting devaluated, because if you want to do it right, you have to place data scientists or data experts at the very beginning of your design process of your project, because which sensors you choose and how you collect data affects the whole outcome of if you want to build an intelligent project. So it has to be part of the early design phases, and therefore you have to change the design phase from the beginning. And this is not easy if you have experts in your company that work in this field for several years, and now you want to add some people that give a different view of this design process to them. Of course, they feel offended in the worst case. And I think this is really the hardest part.
Yeah, for sure. Any other view on the panel? Because we have some questions very interesting questions in the chat that I would like to know. But
I saw that as well. It's actually a difficult question, so I'm hoping we don't have to get to it.
No, believe me, I'm really with
question.
one eye here, and I will trick you all on that.
Yeah. Just real quick to add on to what Eric said just a minute ago. I think also as far as integrating with I absolutely agree. I see a lot of our customers sometimes put together projects and then a year later say, hey, can you sprinkle some magic data science on top, right? And bring in the data science experts at that point. And it's really, it's really difficult in this non-deterministic world. So I definitely agree with bringing in data scientists early into it. But also I think just from a senior leadership perspective at the board level, really having at least some understanding about what AI and ML is. It's not just something that the guys in the basement deal with. If they can simply understand from one perspective that it's just lowering the cost of a prediction, like at that level, that's all so as you're trying to make a product better or an operation or a process better, there's predictions that are made in there. How can we lower the cost of making those predictions and make them less fragile? And then bringing in the experts to understand what are the nature of those predictions early on. I think that's a great idea.
That's good. That's absolute. You see, a minimal level of awareness and literacy, it's always beneficial for all companies, right, Michael? No, for sure. Guys, I don't want to scare you, but I will open for questions in the chat here because I see very interesting questions here. Coming back to data, Simon just asked us, can you give us an example for bad data quality in your company? And how could the quality be improved? This is a very tricky question, but feel free to answer.
Okay, I can jump in this question. From my perspective, we can cluster this question in the two questions. What does it mean, bad data? One of them, bad data, is bad data quality. It's more or less clear and straight. We have a straightforward technique how to handle this data, not complete data, data with lag, data, and so on and so on and so on. This is pretty much, okay, I don't want to say easy, but pretty much clear how to handle that, how to continue with it. And another cluster of this question could be data bias, which is inside of this data. It's not actually bad data like what I mentioned before, but it's also data bias or data which can make AI modeling and based on that automatically decision strategy really difficult and unpredictable. And how to handle this sort of question or problem, I think we need to make a dialogue with our business partner, business stakeholder, with the subject matter in order to understand how to handle this sort of big data, bad data or bias in the data. It's like a two sort of approaches, one technical approach and one, somebody says that today, mentioned today, soft skills approach.
Yeah, that's cool. And for sure, it's not a new question because probably when we start our career in AI, someone asked this for the first day, but it's interesting how this question is still here running around. So it means that we still have a long way to run here. Guys, before I see any other questions, I want to change a little bit the subject again. And it goes a little bit about the ethics in artificial intelligence that maybe we can afford this time for this about more. In several discussions that I've been seeing, panels like this, I've been seeing a lot of ethics in AI. It's becoming a topic that it's really interesting. Probably we need one more hour to talk about this, not the time. And we could really spend more time on this, but I would like to ask in particular Michael here, how do we approach this topic of ethics in AI with let's say, a real relevant discussion and without being business stopper or too much prescriptive in this, because ethics, it's really a large approach. And when it comes to business, how we can approach this in your view, Michael?
First, I think you're very optimistic, and I like this about you. Yeah, I think we could spend a year solid talking about this topic, not a whole hour. And I think if for no other reason, then it's really difficult to describe, to get that right level of modularity, right? What is prescriptive enough to be useful, but not overly prescriptive? And this is the main challenge, is finding where you slide that bar. And the fact is that even outside of AI and ML, there is no standard ethic. There's no one thing that applies broadly across, even across the human race in many cases, right? And so I think, you know, a lot of business leaders that I talk to are struggling with that. If you can't define what is ethical, then how can I define business processes and approaches for how to deal with that, even down in deep into technology like AI and ML. So I actually really like the idea of, if you kind of go back to triple bottom line sustainability, this kind of flipped back in I think it was the 80s, flipped around the discussion of sustainability from what is right and what is wrong to really, as a business leader, taking stock of the fact that you have multiple different shareholders and stakeholders to account to, not just the economic bottom line, but also the societal and the environmental bottom line. And I would add in another one I read very recently. I really liked Professor Flordini at Oxford recently doing a lot of work around semantic capital, which I think is really interesting way of saying the work that we do all day long, you know, in this business is building a semantic understanding around the data and using different mathematics capabilities to do that. And in the process, it's almost like mining Bitcoin almost. We're actually building additional capital by creating that context and semantics around the data. I really like what he's writing around that. So I think looking as a senior leader, not saying is this right or wrong, ethical or unethical, but really looking across all the four stakeholders that you need to you know, these four pillars of stakeholders. And that is absolutely in the remit of every executive, right? Even if they don't have a specific, you know, ethical part of their contract. So,
yeah. No, ethicals. I see that it's going to become a real more hot topic across the data science and AI. It's real growing in any company. But one thing you're right, you mentioned that I'm really positive, believe me, and that's why I want to go to the next steps here. Guys, we don't want to scare you only about artificial intelligence. There's no only challenges here. Maybe we could start to talk a little bit about the opportunities also, because not only scary people here, because there's a lot of risks and challenges about the development and implementation of AI, but there is also this two sides of the coin. AI, it's bringing a lot of opportunities for business across all the industry. It's a big transformation, and many companies are really working hard to adopt AI. Will have a significant competitive advantage today. So let's try to give some good lights here about the advantage. Maybe I will try to start with Achim about what are in your view here today, but we open all for the whole panel. There are the advantages of implementing AI solutions in business today. What's your main view, Eric?
So, for example, in production, you can have a sustained quality, because you can, and also higher efficiency, higher productivity, because instead of doing just some random samples of quality control by some domain expert, now what you can do is essentially inspect every single item. So it's much more control on the quality side, like visual inspection with computer vision of weld seams, for example, or scratched surfaces, or checking if the wiring is correct during the production process already, gives you a much higher throughput of good quality products. but also, for example, on the logistics side, inside a factory where you have to transport goods from A to B, and you have a lot of pathways. If you optimize this with AI, you on the one hand, you get a much higher efficiency, or also lower latencies and more throughput there. And also it's more dynamic. So it can adapt to changing needs if you change your production lines. But also on the end customer side, so this is also where BSH is heading for, building intelligent home appliances. You can make personalized products that learn the behavior of the customer and therefore give also an added value of the for the end customer that is buying the products. So these are two major pillars, I would say, are really important for lots of companies.
Yeah, we are going absolutely on this direction for sure. Thanks, Eric. Michael, following what Eric just shared with us.
Yeah, it's a little unfair because he took mine.
Oh yeah, no, but please,
sorry,
please.
No, I love the fact that we're building products across every industry, building products that better fit their customers' needs, and I think I just generally like that better. One other thing I think, kind of piggybacking off the ethics discussion a little bit, which is AI and ML is turning into a change agent that's really uncovering biases, and these are not new biases, right? We've been building, making predictions and decisions in across industries for many years without AI and ML, and those were always based on bias, and the data that we were collecting was biased, and the things we were doing were based on our experiences. And so, if nothing else, having a piece of code very clearly uncovering and discovering where these biases are in its own work, I think is helping the human race. And it's going to be bumpy, it's going to be painful, but at least it's bringing to light some of the things that have been there for centuries.
Yeah, that's Michael. Staying with you, that you jump on that. So let's read. The question is, how do we identify AI opportunities in the business? We are talking that there's a lot. Yeah. What's your tips about how to?
Yeah, I think, again, getting back to that idea, like how can we make better predictions, right? And this is not new. It's how can we leverage a new technology to make better predictions? And I think, I think starting with customers is the very first step. I think every company should be thinking about. Almost always I see AI being used, what I call AI for BI. It's kind of internal, new mathematics for old BI types of use cases. But I really think the best bang for the buck is looking at your customers, how they want to consume your product, and then, is there a way we can make their experience better? So a customer-focused, customer-facing AI and ML, I think, is the best bang for the buck, and that's going to be different, of course, for every organization and what they're doing there. But I think it's a good place to start.
That's cool, guys. I have one question from the public here that I want to open for everyone, because we are talking about business opportunities and everything, but there are also the niche areas that that must be transformed in was AI. And Hans Schwarz asked us, one difficulty is to transform niche areas which would benefit of AI but are too small for the big initial investment. Any recommendation here on this place?
Maybe the big initial investment, I think this has changed a lot recently with all the move to the cloud, so which is great. There is no more big investment, fortunately, in terms of money to buy licenses, to buy hardware. It's all gone. You pay per use, and the nice thing is you can switch it off. If it doesn't deliver on the value, you just switch it off. You don't have the investment. You stop the payment and you're done. So the risk is gotten relatively low with the recent movement to the cloud, which is great, especially for the smaller projects. And we see that, right? There is a lot of small departments within large enterprises starting off, just moving because the overall company might be too slow to do that. They just move on, and they can now with the cloud, which is made life easier.
Guido, that I will keep on with you for one question. You mentioned earlier about open source, and maybe we can connect also with this question that has put here. But in your view, how it's open source in this open standards in this today can bring value for business here using machine learning and AI? Maybe we can get some opportunities also for the small areas, the small niche that can be, right?
Absolutely. And look, I'm a little bit biased because we are based on open source and we are much into open source, but we have so many examples in the past where open source has delivered so much value. I don't need to go through all these examples where we see open source projects overtaking the commercial offerings even in many cases. So you have you're not having the lock-in, which is I think a big plus for many companies. So you don't have to go all into one vendor. So you have a multiple vendor approach. We talked about the talent. If you want to get talent, open source and open standards is a great idea. And you stay open to the whole ecosystem, right? We're not living in a world where you have this one product that does everything. So you have to integrate through all different legacy systems to the new systems that are coming next month. So an open standards and open source is a good idea in this case as well. So there's many advantages to the open source approach of this.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. That's also another aspect that we also have an eye to have on this. But I will come back to Dr. Igor for one specific question. Before we are talking about good data, good quality of data. Now, when we are talking about opportunities for business, this morning I was looking in LinkedIn and everything, so looking some search, and if you look on LinkedIn today, almost every serious company here today, and big or small, are claiming that they are using AI and machine learning for everything, even no matter which areas they are operating. But for our audience here, how you feel to determine how good a company is in artificial intelligence today? What's any criteria to say, okay, this is a good AI that they are doing a good work. These ones are doing just for the sake of AI, etc. How do you ever think about this? I think you are.
Sorry, yeah, I had a kind of internet issue. Yeah, it's a great question. It's a really complicated question because it's a journey which is AI journey, which is actually never ending. It means to understand where you are, it's everything relative to some lines, bottom lines. And nowadays you can do just a little bit back to questions, previous question. This couple of lines in code, you can do in AI really big things. It means this development process, deployment process, and so on, compared to past days. Nowadays, it's really quickly and really effective. That is why this cycle, development cycle, innovation cycle, become really dynamic and short. And with open source projects or tools or with licensed tools anyway. And we are scratching surface, I would say, of AI possibilities. Yeah, okay, I can refer to the Gartner map or map line and so on, but actually I would say we are scratching the surface and we can deep dive in order to open new opportunity and new possibility to develop AI. And another very, very good point, which I really like from Eric, was that this AI system somebody created, we created that, and then we are living with us, and we are learning from us, from people, from human being, and develop them by themselves. It means it's not so easy to predict now where exactly the journey will go. And I think it's really nice stuff in all this package.
That's good. Guys, we are heading to almost our last part of the last minutes of our very interesting comment. I would like to have a quickly one shot in view from all your sides, from your perspective, from the leadership perspective, starting with Michael. What can senior leaders in this our organization can do to help to lead the transformation with artificial intelligence?
The 30-second or the 2-second version is, I think leaders should hold their teams accountable for not rebuilding wheels. I think there's a lot of that happens. We're engineers, we like to rebuild stuff. It's open source, I can wire this with that. But if it doesn't really need to be done, I think that's the main thing, holding teams accountable for not reinventing wheels.
Thanks, Michael. Who else would like to give an overview on that?
I believe it's already said, you have to come from the customer. You have to understand, and this is how we deal with innovations right now. Yeah. So because when you look to companies developing products in former times, they know how to deal with innovations. Yeah, there are processes, but when you look on the technology side, that what I see very often is missing. Yeah, so that you have a process, time, and space for innovation. Also, how to get this new capabilities that we have of AI, ML into a useful customer meaning solution, whatever it is, if it's service or product. And that's what we are missing a little bit. So that's something I would recommend to have in place.
Thanks a lot. Big Brothers is here again. Thank you so much for this amazing panel discussion, because we have to jump to the next programs to finish everything within